Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment of the weekend show. A coalition of 42 civil society organizations on Monday alleged that the National Assembly was planning to pass a manipulated copy of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Speaking on behalf of the group, a former chairman of Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, Mr. Sam Amadi, claimed there were discrepancies between the approved version of the bill and the alleged final copy, where some key provisions have been allegedly manipulated. He cautioned the National Assembly that such a plot to manipulate the electoral process would be a direct invitation to crisis. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, says the National Assembly is working assiduously towards passing the Electoral Act Amendment Bill in the next 2 weeks. He urged Nigerians who were not comfortable with the certain clauses in the ongoing amendment to take their complaints to their representatives for consideration before the passage of the bill. In the same vein, despite the process of Nigerians against the confirmation of APC stalwart Loretta Onoche as one of INEC's chairmen, commissioners, I beg your pardon, the Senate went ahead with her screening exercise this week, where she blatantly lied that she left the APC in 2019. Reports are now out on social media showing her participating in partisan politics as recently as last year. Joining us on today's programs to discuss legislative rascality, we have
Ariel Dare Atoye, our political analyst, who has also taken us on this journey of electoral amendment. Welcome back to the political segment.
Well, thank you for having me. Also, good morning, Andy.
Cynthia Mbamalu, she is the Director of Programs here at Africa. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
And King Onoja Ilimona, he is a lawyer and a social activist, and they are all back on the weekend show on this segment, so we have return guests.
Exactly.
Because this is quite important, isn't it?
Very, very important. Okay, speaking about legislative rascality, where do we start? The Electoral Amendment Bill, the provisions that have been changed, or Loretta Onyeche's ongoing screening? She talked about this in the media, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, that she had quit partisan politics, but we know social media, they dug up her recent tweets where she was campaigning for the APC. What are the consequences of confirming such an individual who is clearly into partisan politics into the commission?
Yeah, I think first is to understand why the Electoral Commission has been set up by the Constitution is the independent, emphasis on independent national Electoral Commission, and their core mandate is to conduct and manage elections in Nigeria. Now, you need such a body to be non-partisan in practice, in principle, and in whatever form, that its leadership is non-partisan, is independent in every sense, because they would be conducting and administering elections where you'd be having several interests competing and contesting. So you do not want at any point to have such a body to have any semblance of partisanship, because what that means is you begin to question its integrity, you begin to question its decisions, and even the outcome of the election. So that is why the Constitution, in its wisdom, clearly provides that for the appointment of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, the commissioners, the resident electoral commissioners, that key principles to consider is one, that that person is not a member of a political party, is non-partisan, and is of unquestionable character, because you want to protect the integrity of the institution. Now, the Constitution clearly puts it out. Sections 156, you go to the third schedule that provides the requirements in the Part F of the third schedule from Article 14. Specific provisions on the composition of the Electoral Commission. Now, we need this because we want to first safeguard the integrity of the electoral process. We want to guarantee voters, citizens, that when they vote, that their votes would count without any form of manipulation or any form of interest, political interest, in forming the outcome of the elections. And this is important to inspire confidence in the people, in the Electoral Commission itself. So to think that the president would nominate a member of a political party, someone who publicly, without any form of shame, projects the party and the party's goal and ideologies, someone who you would call a true Buhariist on social media, because we've been tracking her social media handles, you know. Before, even now, the names were sent last year a lot of groups came up and we spoke against her name. We said, this woman cannot serve in this sensitive position because we need to safeguard the integrity of the elections, especially because we're going towards the next general elections. And it was quite worrisome that this name was, the Senate decided to go ahead to screen her. And then you're watching the screening process, the questions that they are putting to her, and then she says she was once a member. Like, it beats me that we want to, I mean, I believe in the power of repentance, but not in elections, right? If you've repented from being a partisan member, you could be appointed somewhere else. Right? Like if they want to compensate you for the good work you've done for the party, there are so many other places you could actually be appointed and you could perform if you want to. Let's say, yes, you have the capacity. You're a woman, you're doing great. But we're saying for the independent National Electoral Commission, let us in principle and practice appoint individuals who we can say are non-partisan. If they have interest, political interest in their minds that we do not know of, that's fine. But as long as we know about that, as long as it is public, as long as such a person holds a position within the appointment of the president itself, because, you know, she also was an appointee of the president, you know.
Is an appointee.
Is. You know, they are claiming she's no more, which doesn't even make sense. But, you know, because of that, let us take her and we say, see, if you're putting the gender card, because we saw people coming to say, oh, we are fighting against women. Come on. The South has powerful, intelligent women with the capacity to do the work. Let's go and pick from that pool of individuals who are non-partisan, who are credible, and of a questionable character. It's not just that she's partisan. This is a woman that constantly have bandied fake news without any form of responsibility. And with this character is key. So we really, for us, our elections are critical and is important for our democratic journey. And to sanitize the process, it begins with guaranteeing the independence of INEC. That is the only way you can trust that the electoral process would actually produce outcomes that reflect the true wishes of the people, and it can inspire confidence in the process.
So, Ilemana, let's talk about legality. The president was touted for his integrity in 2015, and the president sent the name of his one of the nominees, who is one of his staff, Loretta Onoji, in October last year. Took about 9 months. She only swore an affidavit on the 30th of June 2021. Now, this same person has been caught, like you have said, posting fake news. She has been caught posting APC content even up to June last year, whereas she had said that she hasn't been partisan since the elections. Now, she has sworn and taken an oath at the National Assembly to say the truth, nothing but the truth, which we also saw some senators debating whether she should be placed on that oath or not. What are the legalities of, one, her being nominated into that position, and two, her reportedly lying on the floor of the National Assembly?
First, I'll provide a very brief correction. It appears to be that and I'll use this very carefully, it appears to be that the date, the June date on that affidavit that's been widely shared, that is prominent, is the date that the certified true copy was obtained, not the date that the affidavit was sworn on. Okay. It's a small correction, but it's an important correction. However, that affidavit, using that affidavit to stress the fact that she's an APC member, is that the case in which the affidavit was filed is still subsisting. A judgment has not been given in that case. She's before the law for all intents and purposes as a sworn member of the APC. Remember this. So she comes and says she's not a member of the APC. Again, under oath, before a legislative body, the highest legislative body of the entire country. Highest constitutional authority with respect to the issue in the entire country. So she's before two people, under oath, two constituted authorities, backed by the full weight of the law to the highest possible levels, having said under oath two completely different things. In a normal country, she'll be in handcuffs, she'll be in detention, waiting arraignment before a court of competent jurisdiction for perjury. Straightforward. Now, in law, we have things that are called notorious facts. Facts that are so well known that further proof thereof is not required. 1. 2, there is no stronger fact in the country, according to our laws, than an affidavit sworn or an oath taken by a person. Under our Oaths Act of 2004, right? Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004. There's simply no higher proof of a fact than an oath taken by a person. She's taking these 2 oaths. Really, if the president had the integrity for which he was famously touted in 2015 and for which he's been famously touted all of his political life, in fact, all of his adult life, if he had that famous integrity, what he would have done was that he would have, first of all, had occasion to withdraw her nomination, or he would by now have occasion to say, you know what, this woman has lied under oath, she's breached the laws of our country, she should be arrested and prosecuted. Hey, we don't even need him to do that. If our security agencies had any sort of integrity, they would have done that on their own. We don't need a presidential directive. If we had functional, fully functional, independent, properly run security agencies, by now the police should have been waiting for her outside of the National Assembly to quickly whisk her away. And this is not a matter that you require. This is not a matter that you require long drawn-out prosecution before any court. It's very open and short. There's a video of her taking an oath and then telling a lie that contradicts a position for which she is validly sworn before a court of competent authority. It's under the laws of under the provisions of the Penal Code of Northern Nigeria. I can't remember what section it is now. I remember that it is section 115 of the Criminal Code. It's perjury. She's liable for 7 years in prison. Very straightforward. They should lock the woman up and throw away the key so that we can talk about better things.
Wow.
Very straightforward.
Okay. Aria, I'm sure I see you chuckling. I know your thoughts and sentiments. You do share the same. So what is the way forward now? Briefly, you just touched on that. And your CSO was one of the 42 who joined in the protest against the amendments made or the provisions that were changed in the Electoral Amendment Bill. So speak to us about that. The Senate President has responded that lobby your lawmakers, lobby those in the House of Representatives, lobby those in the Senate if you want, you know, those setting provisions that you were protesting about to remain in there. So speak to us more about that and what the way forward is.
First, I think it's important that Mr. President should do the needful. The entire country appears not on the side of this nominee, Loretta Onoche. And my worry is that this is more or less like an assault on the collective sensibility of Nigerians. And it's also between doing what is right and also trying to undermine the credibility of INEC. So Mr. President should please do the needful, withdraw the nomination of Loretta Onoche. And my worry also is that some people have said that it's possible that there are people using the presidency. For me, I think the president is culpable. If you think you are not part of it, you should come out and do the needful. And from the interview the president granted some media organizations, it's obvious that the man is aware of what is going on in the country. So nobody should
we've established it on this show that there is no dichotomy between the president and the presidency.
Absolutely.
The buck stops on the table of the president.
So the man is aware. No, I've seen some people trying to say it, some people using the presidency to promote Loretta, that she's not a fit and proper person. Actually, she's not. And it's not because people are saying anything against a woman. There are a lot of women, capable women, in Delta State. If you ask me to go and do the fighting, I will submit names to Mr. President. And okay, so on the electoral bill, I'm still worried, despite the fact that we came strongly and made our position known. And we are grateful to some of those lawmakers who took this concern and went into the National Assembly to convene a meeting, and some of those provisions were actually addressed. However, 48 hours ago, we had there is another coalescing plot, trying also to undermine some of those things. Having failed in getting the committees, because you see, when Speaker Gbajabiamila said there was no iota of truth on the rumor, what my response was, I think they should investigate those who doctored that provision, because it was also an offense that having agreed to to an elaborate provision sections of this electoral bill, that a section of the committee or a few persons went to doctor it. Because the whole essence of having a joint committee is to make the process a bit, free, and also to reduce the time, time consideration for looking at, different sections and trying to harmonize, because there will always be passage conference, And because you had a joint committee, that was going to be very made easy, when the bill is passed by the two chambers. However, what we have now had in the last 48 hours, like I said, is that some people are now saying that they are also going to now move to the process of using the voice vote to also achieve what they couldn't achieve. It means that these things was done. So I'm sure now that Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila must have also been hearing this. We are not hearing much in terms of the House of Representatives, really. The problem lies more in the Senate. And I don't think that this guy should stand in the way of Nigerians. And INEC has said,
for full clarity, I want you to talk about the specific provisions that.
Okay, let me make, I think, about 2-3 of them. For instance, we talk about Section 50 sub 2, which is about transmission of election results from the polling unit to a dedicated portal or server. What we had in the bill that probably was done around February, I think the one that had February 5 date, was giving INEC a discretionary power to determine or to decide if they were going to use electronic transmission of results or not. That is fair enough, even though we have been agitating since then that it should be expressly stated based on our experience of what happened in 2015 when the card reader was not validated by the Supreme Court, because people went to court on the basis of the fact that the card reader was not substantially used. And because of that experience, we are saying that the provisions 50 sub 2 should expressly state, the use of the card, the use of electronic transmission of results. As if the people who succeeded in getting this provision were not satisfied, because they realized that the CS were also talking about the fact that INEC had shown commitment to electronic transmission of results, because we saw that in the by-election in Nasarawa, the off-circle governorship election in Edo and Ondo State. So they went back to their boardroom and they put in place this, what we call a legislative racket. Because what I saw was that when you see the combination of the effect of what they did to Section 50 sub 2 and Section 65(1), in Section 65(1) was to cure what we've seen in Imo and Abia State, where the returning officer said they declare results under duress at gunpoint. Now, Section 65 sub 1 gives INEC the power to review results declared under duress, and within 7 days. They also tampered with that. They also tampered with Section 88 in terms of the cap, spending limits, from 1 billion to 15 billion and thereabout. When you look at about 20 sections were tampered with. And when you look at the aggregate of these sections, they were so done in a way to force what we call a rigged election. So if they had succeeded, the 2023 election must have been won in advance, by those who are trying to manipulate this process. So, but we appreciate, in fact, the good thing now that they take away from what has happened, that's a benefit to some of us, is that now, in the wisdom of the lawmakers now, they've now improved on Section 50 sub 2 to also capture electronic voting and electronic transmission of results, provided that INEC has the capacity to do it. So now giving INEC, but at least we're happy that those words, i.e. the Electoral Act expressly stated. It now depends on whether INEC has the capacity to do it or not. And INEC has demonstrated over and over that they can do it. They have the means, and they've shown that in Edo and Ondo State, and this shouldn't be a problem. For those who are, and it's also important for those who are trying to conspire against this provision and all of that. And I think it's important that you allow this country to grow in terms of our electoral process. We need that electoral climate. We need that environment that is conducive enough for us to have free, fair, and credible elections in Nigeria. We have come of age as a nation. INEC said they have, and for those who are also talking about issue of technology, internet, talking about internet penetration, I'm sorry to disappoint them, that before the advent of GSM, we had Turaya. And probably they should go and check what the Turaya service can offer in terms of mobile services. You know, so what of the USS code? So they've so limited it in terms of, we heard that they are trying to reach out to the communication minister to come and give some nebulous presentation and fact and all of that. Sorry, it's not going to work. Technology has simply gone beyond this divide that they are trying to advance. INEC can simply plug into advanced technologies that are available to any nation for us to be able to transmit results. We are not talking about voting, transmitting results. I like INEC to evacuate the result and do the needful. They say they have the capacity. The senators should have no business preventing INEC from doing its own job.
So, Ari, I want to come back to Cynthia. And the news is out there for everybody to see. From 2015 till date, we've had a missing budget. We've heard about budget padding, where the people reported it, some got even suspended. Now we've seen several bills being manipulated by the National Assembly. So we need to focus on the National Assembly. Every time people say the presidency. And from all of what I've heard today, doesn't this look like a deliberate attempt by the National Assembly to ensure that this act isn't even passed into law at all? And then we get frustrated for another 4 years, because they must be aware that other people like you will read through this and raise these concerns. And all they need to do is step it down and push it till the next electoral cycle. What should we do to hold our National Assembly representatives and senators accountable at this point?
Yeah, I think first, just to even commend Nigerians and CSO partners and the media for, since we got wind of this attempt to manipulate the electoral amendment bill, in the past 7 days, there's been a lot of protest, press engagement, and even people calling their lawmakers, you know, and that I think is important. That is what we need to continue to do, that citizens' vigilance. And I'm not even comfortable now until I see the new law. I wouldn't even rest. Because if you follow the electoral, I mean, 2018, if you follow 2017 to 2018, we were thinking we're going to have a new electoral law. And what happened? Towards the tail end, the president declined assent. So until we have the law passed, we can't go to bed. And until we see the version that would be voted and would be sent to the president, we also can't go to sleep. Because what we have now is, so last weekend, manipulated sections, and now they say, oh, no, we're bringing it back. It's not manipulated. And the House is saying what we have is authentic. I don't know where you got yours from. So where exactly is all of this coming from? So it seems like the Senate, something is happening there. And I think my question to senators are, senators, why are you so afraid of votes counting? Because if you do your work, you shouldn't be worried about people voting for you, because people would vote for you and it would count. It's only when you want to manipulate the process that you are afraid of provisions that would guarantee the integrity of the process. So honestly, you should not be afraid if you care about democracy, unless you don't care about Nigeria's democracy. So that is one. And the thing is, we need to remain vigilant. Very important sections. When Nario was talking, interestingly, post-February, we were actually mobilizing and working to have some clarity, demanding that INEC would expressly deploy electronic transmission of results, because it's not clearly, so they just give INEC the discretion. And we wanted to even have a stronger provision before this now came and we changed our fight to, okay, let us get what we had originally back. So, which is why vigilance is key at this moment. We need to follow through everything, read every news report, listen to whatever they say and follow through the debates. We do not want voice votes, and I'm glad, I think Ariyo mentioned it. We don't want voice votes. Why? The ayes and the nays, it's not going to work on the electoral bill. We want people to vote. They have the device to actually do this voting, right? Yes, we want lawmakers to vote on these issues. so that we can also get a record of proceedings, so that for those who do not vote in support of progressive provisions in the electoral bill, we know those who will start mobilizing against that do not deserve to represent us in the hub of democracy, because we know that they are already threats to our democracy. We need to start tracking how lawmakers vote on issues. These important sections are very critical to us. The electronic transmission of results, we've seen it work in Edo and Ondo. And in Ondo has a very diverse terrain. So you have the Ilajes and the SO, those irreverent areas where you would think, oh, this transmission may not work because of internet or network, because that's some of the arguments we're hearing. But we saw it work. In fact, Ondo recorded more success. By midnight on elections day, 95% of polling unit level results were uploaded on the data on the INEX election result portal by midnight on elections day. In Ondo, that has the riverine areas, that has the different topographies across the state, we saw that work. And that is just Ondo. We've seen INEC also try transmitting results, even with the smart card reader. We saw that happen in Ekiti and Osun 2018. So there is no excuse now. Are there blind spots in the country? Yes, but it's not widespread. It's just in some locations. And people can even move and transmit, right? You can just shift. It's just like if for network. We all do that. So I think we have the infrastructure, technology-wise, to do this. The Electoral Commission is ready, and Nigerians should believe that this would guarantee integrity. Our focus now is to ensure it is part of this law. And this is why it is important. The smart card reader, when it was deployed in 2015, 2019, individuals that went to court to challenge results based on the data in the smart card reader could not rely on that, because the court would look at the hierarchy of laws. Legislation supersedes policy. So consistently, we've been deploying the smart card reader, but people cannot even rely on the data in court. And we need transmission so that if INEC transmits, or when INEC transmits from polling units, you individuals can actually download this, do your own independent collation of results, and when we see manipulation, because you know in the value chain of the electoral process, voting happens at the polling units, counting of results, then collation, you move from polling unit to the ward level for collation. Now the weakest link is that movement from polling unit to ward. At the polling unit, voters stay and count. So you can't easily change there.
Absolutely.
But it's when you move from polling unit to the ward, things happen. Which is why you can, party agents can have results from sheets E8 from E8A,
yes.
right? They can have that from polling unit. But the collation, you would see something different. So you're wondering, but this is what we got at the polling. What am I saying something different? So we need this so that as you're doing the manual process, the electronic is not substituting the manual. The manual goes on, but it complements it. So you're having double checks. As you're doing the manual, you're transmitting directly. Now, what you transmit directly from the polling unit, if there is any discrepancy, you know something happened within the collation process. Now, 2019, we saw an increase in rates of cancellation of ballots. In some states, over 12 states, the Young Africa's reports are indicated in some over 12 states, results were cancelled in such a way that it affected the vote shares of some parties. Specifically, even in Nasarawa, the PDP, for instance, had the highest votes in Nasarawa state. After the cancellation and the result declaration, the votes were equaled. We had states like Rivers, where there was the percentage of cancellation alone, and this happened at collation level. So if you transmit, you can easily track some of this manipulation, which is why we need that, so that you can rely on credible data from polling unit level, and you can go to court to challenge that. Then the very important power of returning officer. Please, we've seen how returning officers have become gods. One, because most times they are giving so much money, they declare whatever that is not right. We've also seen when they declare under duress. And the proposed amendment is to say that INEC can review where results are not declared voluntarily or in line with the electoral law and guideline. Now, that is a powerful proviso that we need in the law, so that we limit how the courts influence and determine elections. We can't keep having courts become coalition officers. See what happened in Imo.
Most definitely.
Let's not go back there.
I believe President Goodluck Jonathan, actually, former President Goodluck Jonathan made that a very salient point when he visited DSTV network. The judiciary has no business, in the elections. So, Onaja, let me give you the final word here. This bill is clearly a threat to people who are used to a broken system. What is your advice for Nigerians? What do we need to do immediately? The CSOs are applying pressure. What else needs to be done?
The Senate President's position is actually very germane when he says, put pressure on your legislators. Put pressure there. I do not believe that, and as much as there is a lot of things going on in the National Assembly, we must admit that, yeah? But first of all, two things. One, with respect to, say, the nominations for the board of INEC, that fault lies in the executive. The National Assembly is doing exactly what it's supposed to do when it screens and will take a vote. That's exactly, they're compelled by law to do so. They can't do anything else unless the president withdraws the nomination. The refusal, the rector or not chase continuance as a nominee is the fault of the president. It's not the fault of the National Assembly. Let's quickly clarify that. One. Two, when the Senate president comes out and says, go and put pressure on your reps and your senators, he's actually shown us what is required of us to do. We need to go back and tell everyone that if this thing passes, yeah, at our smaller units, you might be able to rig the national elections, but we'll make sure that you'll not be able to benefit from it. Because at our smaller units, in your, what they call it, in your federal constituency, in your Senate, we will make sure you lose. And if you're looking for, if you have performed and you're looking for integrity of the election so that you can win, right, give yourself ease. If you help us make sure that this thing is done properly, and that the right sort of law that promotes our democracy is passed, we will campaign, we will vote, and we will make sure that you return to the respective houses of the legislature. But if you don't, and this is a threat that we're issuing across board, if you don't, and we're able to find out that this is you, and you're foisting a broken system on all of us, all 120 million of us, I, Ilemona Onoja, legal practitioner, Nigerian citizen, adult male, I will join whatever campaign that is done against you at any level in any state for the purposes of ensuring that you don't go back to the National Assembly because you insist that we should perform or we should continue to exist under a broken system.
We will all do so, including seeking sanctions.
The Senate can reject a nomination. This has been done before in line with the Constitution. Okay. So the Senate also can say we can't confirm based on these grounds.
They can, but they have to go through processes. The Senate has to
this conversation will continue at the Osasu Show Symposium. That's amazing. Yes. So sign up right now for the Osasu Show Symposium. It's going to happen on Visa Ban. Amazing. On Monday, August 16th, conversations like this is what we're going to be having. It's called, the theme this year is State of the Nation, the People's Constitution. Issues like this that affects you, affects me, will be discussed at the symposium. So sign up now on tossymposiumv.eventbrite.com. Follow us on social media.
At Weekend Show NG on Instagram and Facebook. We're also on YouTube where you can watch this episode and also previous episodes of The Weekend Show. All right, to read news on current affairs and sustainable development, you can visit our website, www.tostvnetwork.com. COVID-19 is still out there. Keep washing your hands, keep practicing social distancing and wearing your face masks. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Until then, take very good care of yourself. God bless you.